Hi there, I'm Craig Dodds and I'm a distinguished engineer here at Juniper Networks. Today, I'll be talking about a new feature for the SRX series called Unified Policies. As far as an agenda goes, first we'll go over what a unified policy is, then we'll cover how the SRX used to behave, and then we'll wrap up with a hands-on demonstration. It's also important to note that the intent of this video is to cover the basics without diving into too much technical detail. So, to get started, we should probably define what a unified security policy actually is. Simply put, it allows you to combine the results of App ID along with your traditional match criteria when defining security policies. What's unique to the SRX in the Next-Gen Firewall space is the flexibility it provides when defining policies. If you need the SRX to treat a particular rule like a Next-Gen Firewall would, you can do that. But if you simply want to drop traffic efficiently without triggering any DPI, or if you want to accelerate trusted flows, you can do that too without any additional configuration or heavy-handed override functions. And most importantly, support for unified policies was added to the SRX in 18.2 in June 2018. So, to recap how the SRX behaved prior to 18.2 R1, you should recall that only the traditional 5-tuple of the first packet was used during the policy lookup phase. This was of course in addition to any route, zone, and identity information associated with the flow. App ID was only activated if you had explicitly enabled it via a feature like AppTrack, or when a separate security service required it to improve its own accuracy. As many of you would expect, due to the post-match behavior of App ID, it became increasingly difficult to apply granular controls and services to individual web applications. The primary example I like to cite is wanting to leverage SkyATP for Dropbox downloads, but not for uploads. This simply wasn't possible before 18.2 R1. Our goal with unified policies was to provide the granularity and control you get with the next-generation firewall, while also ensuring that the best aspects of a traditional firewall are still available to the administrator should they choose to use them. As discussed already, unified policies allow you to utilize dynamic applications as match criteria within the security policy. At the same time, they also give you the tools to bypass App ID for improved device performance when Layer 7 policies are not required. This feature facilitates a few different things that are unique to the SRX as a next-gen firewall. Number one, it allows you to provide maximum performance on a per policy basis. As with any next-gen firewall, application control doesn't tend to affect device throughput heavily, but as you would expect, it can affect the device's connections per second performance when compared to a traditional Layer 4 device. Number two, it can allow you to drop unwanted traffic in a much more efficient manner when DPI is not required for initial policy matching. And number three, if you have hardware that supports it, ExpressPath does become available to you when App ID is not invoked during policy lookup. For the uninitiated, ExpressPath is a feature that high-end SRX possess which allows them to offload stateful flow processing onto available Juniper Trio ASICs for 100 gig line rate forwarding. Also, as an important notice, if a security policy explicitly bypasses App ID for dynamic application matching, but the administrator has configured an advanced security service such as IDP, App ID would still be invoked on the flow to ensure that IDP is intelligently enabling the correct signatures to maximize protection. That does it for the slideware. Let's hop onto an SRX and see what it really looks like. So, as you can see, we've got an SRX 1500 running on 18.2 R1 here in a simple secure wire configuration linking ports 4 and 5, aka trust and untrust. To give you a better idea of what is transiting the SRX currently, let's take a quick peek at the application monitoring view. Here, we can see that there is a wide variety of applications visible to the SRX, with YouTube, Amazon, and several others consuming the vast majority of bandwidth. Dropping into grid view allows you to see the results in an easier to read format. Now that we've got some understanding of the applications transiting our device, let's see how we can control them with unified policies. Looking at the security policy in front of us, most SRX veterans would quickly recognize that a new dynamic application column has been added. This construct, in addition to the newly minted options for it of none and any, as well as the service column's Junos defaults, make up the bulk of the configuration-related changes in 18.2. To break things down more specifically, Dynamic Application is the column where you can specify the Layer 7 application the SRX should look for to complete its policy match routine. An option of any will match against any Layer 7 application, including any custom signatures you've defined on the device. An option of none is what triggers the App ID bypass mechanism, mimicking the policy match behavior of previous releases. It's important to note that the rules where the dynamic application field is set to none are matched first and are terminal. What this means is that any policies sharing the same 5-tuple plus identity, where a specific dynamic application is defined, will not be matched if it overlaps with a rule that includes none. We can see that rule number 1, aka unwanted traffic, includes none in the dynamic application column and matches against all ICMP traffic in the services column. This configuration will drop all ICMP traffic from trust to untrust without triggering any DPI. The setting of Junos defaults within the services column is a special construct which inherits restricted ports and protocols as defined within the dynamic application signature. So, as an example, instead of being set to any, rule number 7, which includes DNS and NTP, will open up only TCP ports 53 as well as UDP ports 53 and 123. You can of course manually adjust this, reducing or increasing port and protocol availability based on your specific requirements. In this case, we'll modify Rule 7 to only open UDP ports 53 and 123 using the predefined services, eliminating the TCP port used for DNS, which is included in the signature by default. To finish things off, let's create a new rule that permits access to certain news sites. Today, we can see that BBC is being blocked, and we'd like any authenticated user to be able to access it along with Reuters and CNN. To do this, we'll first click on the policy creation wizard, add a name, in this case, news sites. Then click next, specify our source information, remembering to add authenticated users only. Specify our destination information, including any dynamic applications. In this case, we're going to do BBC, CNN, and Reuters. Clicking next when we're done, making sure to leave Junos defaults as the service definition. Convert the rule to permit. Next again, make sure to log at session close time. Click finish. And then the last thing we need to do in the policy, we need to move our news sites rule above our cleanup rule, which is reject and log. We do that just by clicking up on more, move rule, and up. And once that's done, we can compare our config in JWeb to what's being delivered on the CLI. In this case, we can see from zone trust to zone untrust with all of our match criteria. And once we're comfortable with that, we can hit close, and then we can commit the configuration and test. So, as you can see, the news site rule is now number 9 in the policy, and if we try and navigate back to BBC as an authenticated user, we should be presented with the full site and not the block page which we saw earlier. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below or find me on Twitter. Take care.